Welcome to Medicine with the Metals. I'm Mark, and this is Michelle, and we're here to share our psychedelic journeys. Wow, Michelle, what a great week. Another great week.
Another great week. So we had our first official Psychedelic Mondays. This is going to be every Monday. Mark and I are going to be going live on all of our channels, YouTube, Facebook. YouTube, by the way, please subscribe. But we're going to be going live every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to be talking about all things psychedelics, legalities.
And this is for you. This is for the people out there to get involved, to ask the questions. I mean, we'll have experts standing by. We'll have questions to answer. We're very knowledgeable in this space, and we have a lot of access. And we have a lot of knowledge to answer your questions. So
we do.
These Mondays are going to be pretty cool coming up.
Yeah, it's really just for you to be able to jump in. And how can you do that? While you're watching live, you can message in the chat. We've got our wonderful producers, Shana and Brian, on there with us, and they'll send you a link to jump on with us. Or if you message us at info@medicinewiththemetals, they'll send you a link beforehand.
Absolutely. And the Geo Directory, Plant Medicine Pad Geo Directory, that's moving along quite nicely.
Roots to Recovery.
Yeah,
very
Roots to Recovery.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We've got probably about 115 on there right now. It's free until April.
Yep. And then we have the courses that are being established on there. We're going to have almost a whole kind of university they're looking at there, which is going to be really cool. Going to take some time, but this whole space is kind of needing something very much like this.
Yeah, these are certifications in the psychedelic world, right? So kind of like being true to you, but a different kind of offering for facilitators, right, for coaches. Also,
happy birthday, Michelle. It's your birthday weekend.
Thank you very much. 53.
Wow. I thought, look at
53.
That. We got another great guest today, talking about this space.
We've got a doctor here with us today. Her name is...
Love those doctors, don't you?
I love them. I love it. Dana Lerman.
Dana Lerman, yep.
And she's here to talk about psychedelic ketamine therapy.
Ketamine therapy and other kinds of psychedelics. I think, I watched a few of her podcasts. She's really
she's very passionate about
this space, and
yeah,
so
really
are we. So
we're excited to talk with her.
Yeah, we are. We'll be back. And don't forget, subscribe.
Hit subscribe.
As we enter the new year, it's the ideal moment to accept change and go on a journey of self-discovery with Mama Dose. Break out from the monotonous routine and create a goal that prioritizes your mental health and well-being. Mama Dose allows you to experience the transformative impact of trying something new, unleashing the possibilities of positive transformation in your life. Consider Mama Dose as a catalyst for regeneration, guiding you through subtle yet impactful transformations. Allow Mama Dose to be your companion this new year as you navigate unexplored areas of personal growth and healing. Small doses, big results.
Today's guest was an infectious disease doctor during the COVID-19 pandemic. She's in Colorado, and she's here today to talk about why mental health and psychedelics and the supporting of both of them. We're excited to talk with her. Welcome, Dana Lerman.
Thank you. So nice to be here with you guys.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Well, first of all, why don't we tell us just a little bit about yourself, and we're going to dive into a few things so the audience and the guests get to know who you are.
Yeah, just a little background and history.
So I guess I could start with, I am an infectious disease trained physician, internal medicine and ID board certified, was a COVID pandemic provider, ended up having my own COVID consulting company, actually. So if I wasn't traumatized enough through the pandemic, I gave myself some more trauma by broadening access to me for people. Through that work. And just really realizing in the middle of the pandemic that I had my own stuff that I had to deal with. At the same time, I realized that I needed to make my way out of the field of infectious disease. And so I ended up reading a lot about psychedelic medicine and figured that was a really amazing space to probably get into. I then signed up to do a training course in psychedelic assisted therapy. And then through that course, actually in the very beginning part of the lectures, Rick Doblin came on and encouraged us to have our own medicine experiences really before working with these medicines. So I did that. I went down to Costa Rica in the middle of the pandemic. I went to stay for a week at Rhythmia Life Advancement Center, which is a ayahuasca retreat center. I had my first experience with ayahuasca at that center, and it really shifted the trajectory of my entire life as a mother, as a wife, as a parent, as parent, as a mother, and as a healer and a healthcare provider. So I went and started my own ketamine practice. I opened up a ketamine space here in Evergreen. And then shortly after that, I realized that there was a need for people to have access to ketamine more affordably and really with their own personal therapist. So I linked up with my partner, who's an addiction psychiatrist, Scott Bienenfeld in New York, and we launched Skylight Psychedelics a little over a year ago. And at Skylight, we prescribe sublingual ketamine to be used in therapist offices across the country. And we also train those therapists affordably in an online self-paced platform. So
very interesting.
that's really where I am now.
Lots. I want to dive into you here.
So
First of
much.
all, I want to say that mine and Michelle's story is very similar to yours before the pandemic, going to ayahuasca, her story with the COVID. COVID did something to wake a few of us up and woke me up. So, go ahead, Michelle.
Before we get into all that, though, I'm curious. Did you ever have any psychedelic experiences before that ayahuasca, even if it was, in college?
Yeah, my first experiences were with LSD when I was 16. So I had a lot of experiences with LSD, but not in a healing way. It was more in a recreational way. I really didn't understand the healing powers of psychedelics really until I was in my 40s.
And what made you said during COVID, you realized you needed to get out of the infectious disease.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
I felt like I was almost becoming like a doormat. Everyone and anyone was reaching out to me to help, and I just couldn't do it anymore. It really just beat me down so much. And then I became really angry. I was having these vaccine talks with people and really trying to educate people. And if you didn't really see things my way, I didn't even have a moment for you. I just kind of brushed you off. I thought you were not intelligent, or I was really just in a very dark place. There's a lot of alcohol. I just was a disconnected human. And I didn't even know how disconnected I was until I drank medicine.
So true. I mean, we don't until we drink medicine. It wakes us up in such a way that we become conscious to our subconscious. It's just so crazy. And it's so beautiful because we know it works. I mean, all these medicines I feel have a different level of where you go through. There's the big medicines like ayahuasca, bufo, 5-MeO, iboga, that's a beautiful one. But psilocybin's another medicine that the Western world's really going to evolve into. And I think there's different medicines for different people at different times, and it's just this space needs so much information because it's such an individual path, yet an individual path that needs learning.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What made you go to ketamine and offer this? Because I love ketamine. I think it is such a beautiful medicine. It's not a plant medicine, but we consider it under the same category.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I decided to work with ketamine because number one, it's legal. Number two, not everyone's ready for plants.
Yeah.
Not everyone is ready to drink medicine. And, a lot of people have a lot of trust in modern medicine. Mm-hmm. And modern medicine is wonderful. I mean, there's a lot of benefit there. And it's, after I drank ayahuasca, I found myself in a place where I was wanting to abandon modern medicine. And so my pendulum swung in the total opposite direction. And then the more I drank medicine and had these psychedelic experiences, the more I found that the answer is really in the middle, in this balance, in this place. And in some of my ayahuasca ceremonies, the medicine has really shown me that my place in this space is to is to bring ceremony into Western medicine, because that's something that we've really lost. And, many of us who are in the Western medicine place identify as healers, but we really forgot what that even means. You don't have time to connect with someone,
Mhm.
and we forgot how to connect. It's like on to the next patient, on to the next patient. And it's unfortunate.
In the medical field, everybody is treated the same, yet we can't be treated the same. We're all trying to give the same medications, but this isn't a one size fits all. I mean, I think we've lost all this concept of our mental health is the beginning of our whole health, and I don't think I totally agree with you. I've met that spot too in the middle, but I believe that the medical is more for internal, like broke bones, this, that. I think mentally we haven't figured this out, or yet they have, yet they want to keep it from us. I don't know. I don't know what I yet believe.
I think that some of us have figured it out, and some of
Yeah.
us have figured out that our mental health struggles are just a manifestation of our trauma and the things that have gone on in our life. And until we deal with that, we're going to be dealing with the depression and the anxiety and the PTSD and the OCD and the trichotillomania and anything. These things are rooted in trauma, but also some of us in this space really believe that some of the physical manifestations of disease are rooted in trauma and malignancy. Absolutely. And other diseases. So it's a really important thing to be able to tap into your own personal psychedelic landscape and do the work. And it's our birthright, right? These medicines are natural medicines in our earth, and we should have every right to access them.
Here's
True.
what I find so beautiful about what you do is you find it important that people work with their own therapist, and therefore you train that therapist so those people can work with them. Wow, what a concept, right? Because we know our therapists, we've been working with them, they know our story, we're safe, we feel safe with them.
hmm And she brings the ceremony to the space.
And you bring the ceremony to the space. We've got it, and I want you to answer to this, but we've got a ketamine provider we're in South Florida.
hmm
His name is Charles Patty. I have no doubt that the ketamine he provided to my daughter saved her life.
hmm
It's an incredible spot there in Bonita Springs. But here's what he does. He brings the Western part of it. So he's got a doctor there, the medical, so people feel safe, but he's brought ceremony to it as well.
hmm
He offers integration. He offers a spot to meditate it's not a hospital setting. You've got both.
That is the whole thing, right? I mean, it's that connection with the provider, and having that safe space, and that setting is so critical, and that integration work afterwards, right? You can go journey to journey, and if you don't integrate that medicine experience, and if you don't develop a ritual every single day that you do that reminds you of where you've been, then you're going to lose it.
Okay, let's talk about that. That was a beautiful statement you just said. So let's talk about integration, because the medicine is probably 5% of the work. Integration's everything. So we throw this word a lot around in this community: integrate, integrate, integrate. Most of us that have been on this path know what that is. After a while, it's just you get a knowing of what that is. What is it to you, integration?
So I just want to backtrack a minute, because I think that we like you said, a lot of us focus on the journey. A lot of us focus on this experience, but I think that the journey is just as important as the integration, which is just as important as the preparation for the experience. The preparation is so critical, teaching people what can happen to them in a medicine space, right? Talking about ego dissolution and what they're most likely, to the best of your ability, to experience in that space. So, but for me, integration it's different for everybody. Just like this is an individual thing. There's no one way to integrate a psychedelic experience. The only thing that is the thing that's most important is that it happens, right? But people can integrate with their therapist. They can integrate with their friends and their community, the people that they've sat with in medicine ceremony. People integrate one-on-one. People go out into nature and they journal and they connect with themselves. They integrate in yoga. They integrate with rapé. They integrate with, in many different ways. But I do think that integration is not interpretation, right? It's not up to someone else to tell you what your experience was. It's up to you to really put that all together. And
100%.
sometimes it's frustrating for people. It doesn't happen immediately. And a lot of these messages in medicine spaces, we take so literally, and the more you sit with it, the more you realize that, oh, maybe that's not what that was telling me. And maybe it actually means something else.
So, and I love, how did you say it? Creating rituals around your journey or what you experienced in your journey. Wow. So what I love this. I mean, I feel that over the years I've done this, but not even intentionally. So to set that intention and to be purposeful in that purpose,
Mhm.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
hmm What sort of what sort of rituals do you suggest, or do you let people come up with their own?
I think it's different for everyone. I mean, I think
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes people, even if they just spend, 10 minutes outside on their porch, drinking a tea, or having a moment with themselves, just completely quiet, or they listen to the music from their journey, right? That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to have access to the music from the journey is so important, and to
Very.
and to really listen to it, because that's like that anchor back to that space you were in. You can
Yeah.
forget it. I mean, I also have an interesting practice in that I tattoo. I have a whole journey arm, so I tattoo salient things from my journey onto my arm, so I know I will never forget it. It is there
Really
with
cool.
me forever.
Can we see some of it?
Really
What
cool.
you got there?
There's a snake. This is actually this is what was a spider web that I saw after a journey in Costa Rica, and it's really interesting because I don't know if you can tell the detail, but my tattoo artist, I gave him a photograph of the spider web. It looks exactly like this. It's outrageous that a creature can create such a beautiful beautiful imagery, but in the middle, and I was about to say randomly, but totally not randomly, there's a Jewish star that is sitting right in the middle of this web, which after I saw it, I mean, I didn't see it until it was tattooed on my body, but I have this as the priestly blessing back here. And it's a Hebrew
Very
blessing
cool.
that was once read to me in an ayahuasca ceremony by a Jewish ophthalmologist shaman. And I didn't realize until that ceremony how disconnected I was from my Jewish heritage. And it really brought me back to a lot of important places. So
Very cool.
3
It does. This
months
medicine
off,
does bring you
6
back to your
months off
heritage.
to
And let's ask
bond
something
with this
about this
child, to
medicine. You're a
nurture
doctor.
this
You're in this
child,
space.
you know?
Why do some
And I
people
always
get it?
talk about
Some people
how
don't. And
it
some people
doesn't have
continue
to
to
be
not understand
capital
that whole
T
integration
trauma,
process.
because the
Because,
trauma is
I
the
tried
story.
everything before finding psychedelics. I was on the talk path. I was on the antidepressant path, the medicate myself path. But once I had those breakthroughs and once I found this medicine was it, I felt that, why isn't everybody understanding this? Why is that? Why do some people get it? Some don't.
there's a lot of fear, right? People are afraid, and it's scary to think about going in and dealing with your shadow side and looking at those dark parts of you. That is scary for a lot of people. And even, I have people in my life that I would love to see have a medicine experience because I could see them struggling, but they have to come to it on their own. They have to come to it when they're ready. You can't pressure somebody. And if they're supposed to go there, then they will. I've just, and a lot of people can feel your medicine. Right. And so I always say to people when I'm getting off the call with them after ketamine intake, I always say, I always thank them for doing the work. And I say that I don't feel like everyone is called to doing this work, and that when we do the work on ourselves, we really impact the healing collective. We really raise the frequency
Sure.
and that vibration. So I think those who are called to it are not just doing it for themselves, they do it for other people.
And I think we go in and out, right? I mean, there's some days when I feel like I'm wide awake, and then there's some days when I feel like the more medicine I do, the more medicine work I do, the more I realize, the less I know, right? I mean, it's unbelievable, but that's the journey.
It is. It definitely is. And there's definitely an age bracket to these medicines. I feel it seems like that 35 to 50 seems like, let's explore this a little more. And that has to tell you something, like, what do we leave there? What happened? Because all this is childhood trauma. There's nothing. I mean, everything that comes up is some sort of trauma. Don't you believe me? Don't you agree with that, Michelle?
Yes, I do. I
I
definitely
think,
believe
and I
that.
think,
What are your thoughts on that?
yeah,
Jenna?
childhood trauma.
Yeah, I believe that that's probably the most common thing to come up for people, and sometimes it's a trauma that you obviously didn't even know that you had, right? It's something that's repressed so deeply and protected by your mind, to prevent you from feeling that pain and allowing you to cope in the society. Um, but back to the age bracket, I feel like, I mean, I've sat in ceremony with 20-year-olds and been in DMT ceremony with 80-year-olds. And so I feel like there's no real, not that there's no real, I mean, obviously you want to make sure the older you are, the more likely you are to be on medications that can interact, or you have some comorbid underlying medical conditions that would make it unsafe for you to experience these medicines. But I see a lot of older people because, the end of life existential distress or anxiety
Yeah,
is something
for
that's
sure.
very real.
Mhm.
And not saying that medicine is a magic bullet for those things. And for some people who weren't struggling with that, sometimes after a medicine experience, now that's what you're thinking about,
That's
and
very
that can
true.
happen, right?
Well, in young people, I mean, two of my children had gone and done ayahuasca before I did. So, I mean, young people are drawn to it also. I think that it's, I went to ayahuasca at age 48, and it's that age, I think, when we start questioning, start thinking maybe there's more. Is there more to this? What's going on?
And there is more. We know that now. So much more.
It's
So
endless.
it
It's
is.
endless.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool. Especially, let's talk about the medicine 5-MeO. So you sat with Bufo before, correct?
Mhm.
That's a beautiful medicine right there. I mean, I think that's a medicine that needs so respect, and the way people are doing it now with the pens and stuff is just insanity to me. But you know, what a powerful medicine to really, two things, maybe to experience the first time of death, and these are just my personal opinions, feel
Mhm.
that death done earth kind of feeling, and to feel as I guess one, as whole as truth.
I have an immense and indescribable amount of respect for all of these medicines. I think that all of them really need to be respected, and people really need education around them before they go ahead and do them, because they can blow you out. And if you don't have a support system and you don't have that ego structure intact to rebuild after that experience, I think you can be in a worse off place than you started. I've had a lot of friends who have had big Bufo experiences, and came back, and they're medical providers, and they've come back from Bufo, and they wake up the next day after experience and are like, okay, what would I do now if I was a human? Oh, a human would take a shower, and a human would have a coffee, and then I have to go to work. So, it's not like we as psychedelic medicine providers have to really know that just because we have had these amazing grounding, opening experiences, that not everyone has that. Sometimes it's really hard for people, and sometimes medicine can bring them to a very, very, very dark place.
Mhm.
And that's why you have to be in a supported environment, and you have to have that support after the experience. It's so important. And the education is so important. Like, we think about these medicines and we say they're our birthright, right? I say it's our birthright to experience them. And they've been around for thousands of years. But also, when they were first available, um, we were not living in this society. We didn't have all of this other thing. We had our community and our village and our people to hold us and take care of us. We weren't some sole person in the woods alone,
Yep,
right? So
exactly.
the community is just so critical in this psychedelic space.
Absolutely. So, where, speaking of community, where do you see all this going? Where do you see the space going? Where do you see people in your field going, with these licenses and whatnot? Where do you all see this going?
I think that there's going to be different practices and there's going to be the medicalization, and that's going to happen, and some patients are going to benefit from that, because some people are not ready to go drink medicine in the jungle. Some people don't
Absolutely.
trust that. Some people, I mean, I wasn't ready to go drink in the jungle
Right.
when I
True.
first started. I needed to have a paramedic there. I needed to have that whole system that I had. But there are some people that aren't even ready to go and have an experience like that, right? Where I went to Costa Rica, people don't want to leave the country. They feel very safe here in the United States. They want to sit in a doctor's office. They want to be on a monitor. And, there's a whole, have you heard of pharmawaska?
Yes.
Right. So there's this, so to medicalize ayahuasca and put it in a tablet and take it in a doctor's office, I've had arguments with people about it and open and friendly arguments, but like where we disagree. And, they said to me, it's really disrespecting to the medicine. And how can we allow this to happen? And I said, the thing is that people are struggling. And while I would like them to go drink medicine in the jungle, they are probably not going to do that. So are you going to say to this person, you shouldn't even have any sort of medicine experience? You should just stick to the SSRIs and the talk therapy, and we know that's not working for you? Or is it possible that person has a pharmawaska experience and benefits from that? And then maybe, and not that the end result or the end goal is to get everyone to go to the jungle, but maybe they end up there one day because they're not going to end up there any other way.
Yeah.
And they're not
It opens your
going to,
eyes.
Yeah, it does. It will.
Well, along those same lines, then answer me this: what is the general consensus with Western practitioners of medicine about psychedelics? Because we had somebody on a couple weeks ago who said if and he was talking about therapists, but Western therapists were not educated in the psychedelics.
in the
In
next
5 years, then they would be dinosaurs.
It's hard for me to say because the people that I am surrounded with are all psychedelic practitioners. Like I live in Colorado.
Yeah.
So my best friends are some of the legacy growers of psilocybin here. One of my medicine sisters owns a psychedelic resource center in Denver called Plant Magic Cafe. I'm constantly surrounded by people in the psychedelic medicine space. I have been to therapist conferences with thousands of therapists, and it seems like there's still a lot of education to do, and there's a lot of the stigma is real. Like it's still there. These medicines were called drugs for such a long time, and they still are for many people.
Yeah. We've lived in a society now that's just all corporate. It's a corporate culture, and we're kind of their working bees. And I think the ones that kind of want to see the way out of this are, seeing a different world, and what that world looks like. I don't know, but it should be more like you say. It should be more of those communities and this more togetherness. And it all comes from like, I don't think we should be here on this universe, on this planet, just to be going to work 9 to 5 every day.
No, you have to live a life. Otherwise, what's this for? What are we doing?
Well, and I want to go back real quick to you talking about, not everybody can get to the medicine. And I feel the same way. I mean, we used to work with somebody who felt the only way to do ayahuasca was to go to the jungle, and that's the only thing you can do. And when I went and did ayahuasca the first time 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, I mean, I was a single mom. I could barely afford to go do it in the United States. I mean, I couldn't afford to take off and go for a week, and I mean, I couldn't do that. I had to get financing to do it this way. So you are correct. Not everybody can leave. Not everybody has a passport. Not everybody can leave the country. People are afraid to. People look to their doctors. They feel comfortable with the Western medicine.
Absolutely.
I don't know how I feel about pharmawaska, but I understand exactly what you're saying. This is why I love ketamine.
Mm-hmm.
It brings people in and opens a door that perhaps wouldn't have been open before.
Yeah, many of us believe that ketamine is the Trojan horse.
I think it's going
Totally
to
agree.
be. It's for sure. I mean, what else? Why else would they have done this? There's something behind that they're doing with ketamine. And I agree with this. I mean, the psilocybin route's probably going to be sitting in the chair in the office 5 hours with a blindfold on. I like the MAPS route, but I also think people need a choice. People need this route too. This is the way the medicines are. We should have that choice. As long as we know these medicines are safe, we're educated about them, and there's a little bit of science behind it. There's 2 ways that human beings should be able to have a right to these sacraments.
Completely agree. And that's one of the things that's going on in Colorado, and that we don't know what's going to happen here, is that after the decriminalization of these medicines, and they're launching these licensing, these licensed facilities and licensed practitioners, us practitioners don't know if we're going to be able to operate in both areas, right? Like, can we have a licensed healing facility and center at the same time? Can we hold ceremony in our homes?
But can I ask this question here? And I seem maybe a little naive and against the system and that, but when can we all stand up together? If we believe that, you believe that, there's so many that if we keep going with their ways and their policies and their procedures and what they want us to do, how are we ever going to get better as a society? Because they're going to keep trying to keep us sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that it goes back to the community and really showing up and speaking your voice and being heard and not stopping.
Yep, we agree. That's why we started the plant medicine path. That's why we created our community of almost 20,000 now. That's why we have this podcast. We are interested in getting people's voices out there, information, education, integration of plant medicines in their therapies. Very important. Let's talk about Skylight Psychedelics.
Yep,
Did I
let's
get
talk.
that right? How I love that what you're doing. I love that you are training therapists so that they can facilitate their own patients, their own clients. How do people find you? And do you find that most people are looking for you, or you're putting yourself out there and finding them?
Yeah, so right now we're really a grassroots. It's really been a grassroots effort. We go to conferences where there are a lot of therapists, and then once we train a therapist, then they are referring some of their clients. And so it's more of a B2B, and the clients are coming in through their therapist typically. Very intermittently, we'll get a client who comes to our website, doesn't have a therapist, and then we link them up with a therapist because we have a lot of them so far that we've trained. So it's
Can a
been really
therapist
great.
also come to you and say, "Hey, I'm interested in getting trained. I
Yeah.
don't have any clients right now, but I hope to."
Yep. We get therapists all the time.
Mhm.
And the therapists, they prefer our community because, we are therapists who are drawn to this are spiritual. This is just this practice that we have created. It's a medical practice, but it is a spiritual practice.
Sure.
So when clients and therapists come to us and they ask us how the medicine works, we'll talk about neuroplasticity and we'll talk about the neurotransmitters, but what we really focus on is that inner healing intelligence and the remembering and allowing people to connect with who they are and their voice inside and to listen to that voice. And so that really resonates with people who come to us. We don't really get a lot of people who want to talk about neurotransmitters.
Yeah. Well,
Looking to heal.
listen to your gut is like, I think the most important thing we need to do. And we're not ever taught about how important our gut is, like not just our gut health in general, that's where all our trauma sits. I mean, I think that's why these purgatory medicines are so good for us, because we purge these things out. We purge these traumas that have been sitting in our mainframe of our brain for so long. And I'm no doctor, but I know this happens because I've been through so many experiences to know this happens.
It's a physical elimination.
Yeah, we call it getting well. We don't
Getting
call
well.
it getting sick.
Yeah,
We call it getting
yeah,
well.
yeah.
And it's, when you purge on medicine, I've had many experiences where I've purged on medicine and I will look in my bucket and I'll ask the medicine, what was that?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
funny. One time it told me it was LinkedIn.
I met my ego in the bucket one time. Yeah. I did. She was in ceremony with me, and I thought she was a volunteer, and then she was freaking me out. And then I ended up going into Maloka and purging into my bucket, and I looked in there, and there she was looking up at me, waving. It was, it's quite an experience.
Well, we
Very
talked about a lot
powerful.
of medicines today. We'll talk about just one last more, like iboga, ibogaine. I think that is like, I sat, might tear up here. I sat with iboga about a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful, like still to this day.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, that medicine, like the results you see from it, like 30, like 85% success rate with opioid addiction. My nervous system like was reset in a week. It was like, Michelle will tell you.
Yeah, it was incredible. I've watched him do other medicines before, and the change in his nervous system from this one was incredible. Still a year later.
Yeah, I believe in that, in the power of that medicine. I know people very close to me who've had really transformative experiences with that medicine and who struggled before with opiate addiction. And I think that, when we think about these medicines, we think MDMA for PTSD, and we think psilocybin for depression, and we think ketamine for suicidality, and we think iboga for opiate addiction. But the reality is also that these medicines work for trauma, right? And a lot of iboga practitioners use that medicine or work with that medicine. Every time I say use medicine, it doesn't, like, the medicine hits me in the head and says, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
A lot of providers are working with iboga beyond addiction, right? For people who are just struggling, right? There are a lot of Navy SEALs who have gone down and had iboga experiences.
Amazing Stanford
Amazing
studies.
results.
And
That's crazy. Stanford studies are just amazing right now. They're just beautiful. Coming down there doing a boga, then then doing a sitting with 5-MeO, and then coming back, and just the results have been like mind-boggling. So it's just like these medicines work, and they've been around for thousands of years. Like you say, I think society, we've brushed them away in the 60s, and then we've just demonized them after that. And we've really demonized them so bad that this has been really hard for people to even grasp still, even when they see all these results.
yeah, it's a lot of undoing.
A lot.
It's a lot of undoing, right? We were talking the other day about I mean, I think I'm a little bit older than you, but you might remember the commercial with the egg in the frying pan, and this is your brain, and this is your brain on drugs, or the woman jumping out the window. This is what LSD will do to you. It's not true. It's not true.
No,
and
it's
undoing.
for the most part, it's not true. But sometimes medicine can shift us into a spot that's dark,
Yep,
right?
for sure.
And that's why that support is so important.
100%.
so
But those
important, right?
those are the best. Those are going to be if you have the right provider, if you have the right support, those are going to be your breakthroughs.
Yeah. And sometimes the darkest places, you'll have the biggest breakthroughs, right? And it might not
for
even
sure.
be in the ceremony. It might be when you leave.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So what kind of events do you have events coming up? Where can we find you? Let's talk about your what you've got going for a minute.
Yeah. So right now we're really focusing on bringing on more therapists, training more therapists at Skylight. We do ketamine group therapy journeys for people, because that's a way that people can afford it. We do intramuscular group journeys for people in different places. And I think that, that community is the community ceremony to me is the most important thing. Because
what does that look like? I've not heard of this in ketamine sessions before. I love this.
There are a lot of providers who offer group sessions. They have a therapist there, and people, it's similar to Aya ceremony, right? Where you have everyone who's laying down and they take the medicine and they're in the journey, and you have music that's playing, and you have people that are guardians of the space, supporting the space and offering people individual help if they need that. It's a shorter journey, right? It's 40 to 60 minutes on ketamine. But you do the same thing. You do the preparation, you support them for the journey, and then you have that integration time. And then, it's more affordable for people to do it in groups. And then also it allows them to be witnessed and to witness other people.
Do they build that community connection like they do in Aya? Do they build that
important
support then? Do they make friends like, after Aya experience,
This is your best friends.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really cool.
I love that you're doing this. And you're in Evergreen, Colorado. I actually just moved from Inglewood a couple of years ago down here to Florida. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm right now currently in Evergreen, but Skylight is a national practice. So we are prescribing across the country for people. And it's amazing how much it's grown, and people really believe in it. And, it's beyond the patient community or the client community. It's the therapist community. So when we prescribe medicine to our clients to use in their therapist office, we also offer them every other week a Zoom with one of our integration therapists who offers them integration support as a community. So they may be taking it individually with their therapist, but then they can come online to a Zoom and share their experience or hear someone else's experience and just listen. But we also offer something similar to our therapists. So our therapists, anyone who takes our training course has access to our online Zoom forum where we meet every other week with a group of therapists. And so that is run by myself, my partner, and Elizabeth Wolfson, who joined us from Field Trip, who's a therapist in psychedelic medicine. And so we talk about challenging cases and interesting cases, and not just ketamine, but all psychedelic medicines, and really also do another support group for just the therapists where they have their own integration and they can talk about what's coming up for them, because that's
so
critical.
important. That's so important.
And we
right?
don't charge the therapist a monthly fee to join us. They pay a one-time fee to take our course. Our ketamine course is $4.99, I believe. $4.99. You take the course and then you have access to all of it. And then we'll prescribe to your clients if you're a licensed therapist.
Well, I love what you're doing at Skyline Psychedelics.
Do you prescribe to folks who don't? I know you said some people will call who don't have a therapist. Can you help them that way?
Yeah, we'll find them a therapist. We'll link them up with someone that we've trained and that we trust, and we'll connect them with somebody so they could have that person.
It's incredible. It's incredible the work you're doing. We have this little project called a geo directory that we'll talk to you about after this, but love to get you on there. And it basically just connects you with all the other providers.
Great. Yeah. It's so nice to hang with you guys. And I love, when you connect with medicine people, it's such an easy flow, and it's really nice to be able to do it.
Well, listen, we do this other thing on Monday nights. Hop on anytime. We go live every Monday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, and it's just a forum for people to a roundtable discussion. We bring, I think next week we're going to have our lawyer come in and talk legalities, but it's just a time for people to come on and talk and connect community.
Yeah, because we love what you're doing. I mean, we love what you're doing. We love that you are, I don't know if you're risking or not, but you're doing cutting edge stuff right now. You're there. You're out there, and this is what we need more of, because these medicines work. We know they work. We just need the education and information behind it, and people can start living their best life.
Yeah, living their life, right? It's as a physician, just fixing bodies, it doesn't feel right when you know that there's all this trauma underneath, right? You're just fixing bodies. And actually, this has been the most rewarding thing that I've ever done in my entire medical career. I helped a lot of people during coronavirus and all those things, but the amount of people that reach out and say how much this medicine has changed their life. And, that's another thing, is that in Western medicine, it's like, I'm the doctor and I'm up here and you're down there and I'm going to give you this medicine and I am healing you. But in psychedelics, that's not at all what it is, right? The provider is giving you access to a medicine and you heal yourself.
I always say this is a personal journey. There's nobody that's going to there's going to be support. You're going to have your support, but this is you. This is you working on, this is you fixing you, who you always were, to bring you back to fixing those default mode systems, fixing those, rewiring and refiring your brain, just thinking new thoughts. And it's just the process.
We have the answers, right?
Yeah.
We have all the answers within us. It's these medicines just open those doors to allow us to see it. And we say this to people all the time. Oh, you're the experts. No, we're not. You're the expert of yourself. You just don't know it.
Yeah, it's
remembering.
remembering.
Become your own guru. Yes.
Yeah.
It's remembering.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
You lose a lot of ego in this space if you do work. Yeah.
You become friends with your ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah, partner.
Exactly. Well, this has been a beautiful conversation. We would love to have you back and continue it. I think it's such an important work that you're doing. Thank you for what you're doing. And, whatever we can do to support it's super important.
For sure.
Thank you, guys. I wish I could give you a hug.
virtual hugs.
You're cool. You're cool to talk to. You're really awesome. I love you. Put yourself out there. I love what you're doing. I think it's very important. I think you are true Trojan horse. Ketamine for sure. I think psilocybin is going to be the future of the Western world. We just need to educate people more and tell them they're not going to jump off buildings on
Can I ask you this though before we go? What does your family think? So I imagine, I don't know if it's your parents, your grandparents, or whoever it is that raised you. You went to medical school, and what do they think?
Well, my dad drinks ayahuasca.
Beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, he actually went and drank medicine before I did. My little brother started first. Well, once he heard I was committing, then my brother said, well, I got to go first.
I
And
love
then my
that.
dad says, well, then I got to go next.
I
And it
love
was interesting when I was in the Maloka and I was looking into my bucket, I could feel that my family had been there before me.
Isn't that
It
awesome?
was obvious that they had gone through that path before I got there, which I was grateful for because
We
Yeah, they
all,
were
yeah.
lighting the way for you.
It's
That's
just
beautiful.
lineage. Well, they had to come here for you, come here for you to learn. You know, they had to recome for you to learn. Now you're learning. So I think,
Teaching all these others.
and that's what we do. That's what we have to do.
Thank you so much for everything you do. It's really important.
thank
Thanks
you.
for coming
You
on.
guys too, really. Thank you for what you're doing.
Ciao.
Yeah, we'll be back. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Oh, Michelle, what a great show. What a great guest. Fantastic talk today.
Yeah, Dana Lerman. It's just so cool. You know, she's an MD who has done the crossover, I like to say, and now she's offering psychedelic assisted therapy. And the really cool thing about what she's doing is she offers to train your therapist so that you can do ketamine with your therapist, which I mean, it's brilliant.
Yeah, and ketamine's going to lead to psilocybin. So you're probably going to be learning two things and kill two birds with one stone.
Well, here's what happens, and we touched on this a little bit with her, is that this will open the door for people to venture further, right? Because once you do one medicine, whether it's ketamine or psilocybin or whatever it is, it opens the door to others. So while there's that safety net of taking a Western pharmaceutical medicine such as ketamine, maybe that's going to open the door that you're going to explore further and then go do ayahuasca.
Really great guest. I love those great guests like that. And we got a cool psychedelic story coming up today, don't we?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I love these psychedelic
Me
stories.
too, man.
If
Me
you're
too.
interested in giving your psychedelic story, let's hear it.
Yeah. And don't forget, YouTube, subscribe.
Hit subscribe.
Subscribe. We have Hector Gonzalez on the psychedelic story today. Should be a cool one.
My name is Hector Gonzalez. My mother's name is Valerie Schriefer, and my father's name is Gilbert Gonzalez. Those are my parents. This is my psychedelic story. I guess it begins when I was a child. I've always been a little weird, a little bit different. Been through a lot of trauma in my life as a child, and a teenager, and even as an adult. And psychedelic and plant medicines really helped me dive deep into my own things. Through this process, I've learned how to live an okay life. My first sacred plant medicine experience was in the end of 2019. And prior to that, I had taken mushrooms a few times, but it was never within the intent or any ceremony style. So as a young teenager and an adult, I started to use a lot of drugs to kind of cope with my life and the things that I've been through. And through those experiences, I was very close to death multiple times. And Bufo was my very first experience in a sacred setting, and that experience really changed my life. And Bufo really woke me up, and it told me quite a few things. My life has not been the same since that day. So my first experience with psychedelic plant medicines was in Texas, in South Texas. Through this process of the Bufo, I've learned a lot about myself and a lot about these medicines. So my first experience with Bufo was in a sacred setting. And the medicine, it did work. It changed my life. And that one Bufo process, the first one that I had, really gave me an awareness of how much I have to do. And specifically, in my first process, I was told that I needed to quit using cocaine and that it was putting holes in my nasal cavities and my sinuses. And as I was trying to breathe through the process, it told me that I needed to quit smoking cigarettes because I can't breathe. I couldn't take in that full prana, that breath, that air. It was a very good day for me. So after that first Bufo process, I began at the church that I was at in Texas to sit with peyote. I sat with peyote my first time there in Texas, and I also drank ayahuasca my first time there in Texas. And over the past 3 years or so, I've kind of devoted my life to helping other people who are in my position, because if I would have found this medicine and these types of things a lot earlier on in life, I feel like I would be a lot better in a position. I wouldn't have gone through so much extra trauma that I went through, a lot of it on my own accord. I wanted to learn how to really work with the bufo. I wanted to learn how to work with it in a really deep way. After, I think it was like my 6th or 7th ceremony, I reached out to the owner of the church and said, hey, I feel called to learn this stuff a lot deeper. She told me that if I found some medicine that I could go back and she would teach me. And so I contacted some people in Mexico, and they sent me some medicine in the mail. And I got the medicine, and I tried to go learn from the church that I was starting at. But it didn't turn out to be like that. I was met with a lot of resistance, and I was told that I wasn't allowed to go back to that church because I didn't have respect for the medicine, and I was a child, and I didn't know what I was doing. So that right there really hurt me, because this place changed my life. It was one of the biggest blessings in disguise that I come now looking back. It was a very big blessing for me, because through that process of not being allowed to go learn at the place here in Texas or there in Texas where I was at, I was forced to go learn in Mexico with the Comcac tribe, the Seri tribe. I went down to Mexico to first collect my own medicine. It's because after I got the bufo and I tried to go learn at the church, I wasn't allowed there, so I sat in my home and I smoked the bufo 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day for 3 or 4 days a week for probably about 3 months. And through that process, I learned how to really map out the amount of medicine and what the effects were and where I was at and what I was doing in that process. So I found out later that's absolutely not the right way to do it. That's actually counterintuitive, because the more you smoke bufo, the weaker your connection with the source consciousness becomes. After I ran out of medicine there, I went down to Mexico to collect medicine with my good brother Edgar, who has a 13-acre ranch that is a sanctuary that is recognized by the Mexican Department of Agriculture, called the SARMNAT. So I arrived there and I spent a few days with him, getting to know him as a person. After collecting a little bit of medicine, I explained to him that I was looking for a teacher, that I really wanted to have someone to teach me the correct way to really walk with the medicine and share the medicine in a sacred way. And he told me that, hey, I know the elders of the Comcac. We ended up driving down the very next morning to go meet the elders of the Comcac, and I had a ceremony with them, and they asked me to stay. They asked me to stay with them for several weeks and to be with them and to go through a fast and a vision quest in search of a shamanic connection inside myself. So through that process, I spent 4 days on Shark Island, which is a reservation island of the Comcac in Sonora. And I spent 4 days with no food and 1 bottle of water. That process taught me that I don't need anything besides God to stay alive. I don't need anything but God to provide for everything. As much as we try to control things and try to be, try to look out for ourselves, nothing happens without the Creator and without God. So through that fasting process, I learned to put all of my faith in God and to trust my own ability. And I made it through those 4 days. It was a really difficult process for me. It was really scary, especially hearing that the gentleman before me who went through this process ended up in the hospital. So that almost made me not want to go and do it, but I still did it anyway, and I made it through. And after that process, over the course of the next 6 months after that process, I took probably around 20 people in small groups down to Mexico to experience what I had experienced in a way. During my time in Mexico, I went with the Council of Elders, 2 members from the Council of Elders and my teacher, Luis, and we went to the courthouse in Hermosillo, which is the capital of Sonora, and we founded a civic association, a religious civic association, based on the religious beliefs of the Comcac, using their history and their lineage of shamanic practices in conjunction with the 5-MeO-DMT to firmly state in a very recorded way that's undeniable that the 5-MeO-DMT is the sacrament of choice and how the Comcac and their shamanic practice connect to God and Source. So I founded a church, and the church is called Yoshki Yako, which is Akitam in language. It means house of God. House of God, the church is everywhere on the face of this earth. Everywhere is the house of God because God is everywhere. After my time there, I was recognized as a person of the tribe, and I was able to teach their ancestral teachings and to sing their songs and to share with their shamanic practices in sacred ceremony. So I started to travel the United States and Puerto Rico and Mexico and to share the Bufo in many different ceremonies in many different states. My entire life, I've always liked to learn things the hard way. And through those experiences, I learned the most through difficult processes, unfortunately. So that being said, I have quite a bit of experience on what to do and what not to do as far as, medicine and sharing and how to carry myself and how to portray psychedelic medicines in a safe and protected environment for many people. I personally have served and worked with around 750 people in ceremony with Bufo specifically. Aside from Bufo, I was gifted a teepee, a 30-foot teepee, and over the course of the last year and a half, I went out and cut down 22 lodgepole pines by myself. I prayed and gave tobacco to each pole, and I cut down each pole, and I stripped the bark on each pole, and now I have a teepee that a good brother and roadman of mine is teaching me those ways. So I'll continue to pray with peyote in that way.
I love these psychedelic stories.
Hector, he's a friend of ours. I loved hearing his story.
Yes, definitely. Love to hear how medicine people get in this space and they learn more and more. It's a challenging thing.
It is challenging. Here's what stuck out to me when he said that God got him through those 4 days. I believe that we are God. He is God. I am God. You are God. So when people say these things, I want to say you got yourself through those 4 days, right?
Because we are God.
We are God.
We just want to take this opportunity to thank everybody for their psychedelic stories coming on, sharing their stories. We love to hear more. We'll connect you with our producers. We'll get you on these little quick stories that really benefit a lot of people in the community. People love to hear other people's stories,
Yep, they do. Info at Medicine with the Metals. You can connect with Shayna and Brian and give your psychedelic story. And some of them end up on the show with us.
Yep.
And some of them go on our YouTube channel that
And
people can go watch.
Media. Absolutely.
All our social media. People love to hear your psychedelic stories.
Speaking of social media, YouTube, you got to hit that subscribe button for YouTube, don't we?
We keep talking about it, but we have thousands of viewers on YouTube, but we need you to hit subscribe. So do that for us so we can keep doing this. Come find us on all our other platforms. Info at Medicine with the Metals, right? We've got the Church of the Sacred Plants. If you're looking for a psilocybin assisted therapy, we've got therapists all over the country for those.
The Plant Medicine Path, information, education. We got the Plant Medicine Path group.
Geo Directory. We have our Facebook group.
Medicine with the Metals.
And then if you're interested in microdosing, go to mamadose.com for all your microdosing and macrodosing needs.
We're getting more sponsors every week. So
we
love more sponsors. Sponsors are good.
Yep. All right. I think that's it for today. Thank you, Dana Lerman, for coming on, talking with us. We'll see you guys all on Monday night, 6:30 p.m. Eastern.
Live. Psychedelic Monday Live.
Medicine with the Metals.
Ciao.